Hello everyone, my name is Ezeocha-Orieno and today we'll be talking about something super powerful and it is called Microsoft Power Automate. Now, what exactly is Power Automate? Power Automate helps you automate tasks and processes that normally you would do manually, like sending emails, updating spreadsheets, moving files, getting approvals. Instead of doing all of that action yourself, Power Automate connects with Microsoft tools like Forms, Excel, SharePoint, Teams, and helps them talk to each other automatically. Now, we will be building an expense reimbursement solution. Think of it as an employee submitting a form with an expense or with their expenses, right? And this request is validated against the department's budget. The request is then routed for approval through the manager and then the finance team. And the outcome of that approval status is sent as an email to the employee. All of that information is then updated on the SharePoint list for tracking. Now, doing all of that manually is time consuming and prone to errors, but with Power Automate, we can design all of that process to run smoothly, accurately, and automatically. Now, let's get right into it. Okay, so this is what our Power Automate looks like, right? But before we delve deep into Power Automate, let's first look at the other resources that we would be needing in this video. We have our reimbursement form that I have created, and it includes all the necessary details, including a part for the employee to upload their receipts. And we also have the cost center, which you can actually call departments, right? We also have our SharePoint list that I have created called the expense request. And from the past examples I have done prior to this video, I have already populated some information here. We also have OneDrive. Now, in this OneDrive, I have saved an Excel file. So I have saved the Excel file that contains the department's budget, right? So this table is called data table. You can take note of it because we'll be needing it during the course of this video. So now we are back to our Power Automate environment, and then we can click on the create here, and then you see the different types of triggers we have. We have the automated cloud flow that is triggered when a specific event happen, right? Like when an item is created on SharePoint or when a response is submitted and all of that. Then instant cloud flow runs when a flow is manually triggered. And then we have scheduled cloud flow that runs at set intervals. But in our video today, we will be using the automated cloud flow because I want this flow to run when an event happens. So when we click on that, we have to input our flow name. So our flow name for today would be reimbursement request flow. And then we need to start our flow with a trigger. All flows start with a trigger. And what is a trigger? A trigger kickstarts your flow. It is what kickstarts your flow. Think of it as, when should my flow start? So in our use case, I want my flow to start immediately the employee has submitted the form. So when a new response is submitted on Microsoft form, that is when I want my flow to start. So I'll have to click on this because this best fits into what I want. And then I click on create. So it has updated my connection, right? So from here, I have to input my form ID. I click on the drop down here, and remember the name of my form is reimbursement form. So I click on this, and then what do I do next after a trigger? I have to input an action. An action is more like what next after a trigger. After the flow have started, what next do I do? So at this point, I want to be able to retrieve all the information that has been imputed in that form. So to do that, I have to click on the plus sign here and look for get response details. So with that action, I can be able to retrieve all the information like the full name, the amount, the dates, description, all that information. I will get it. So I have to also input my form ID here. The response ID has to dynamically come from the trigger, right? Response ID. After that, what next do you want to do? So this part for me is optional, but what I want to do exactly is to summarize the uh, information or details that the employee have submitted. So at this point, I want to send an email to the employee. Send an email. And I will be using the Office 365 Outlook connector. So I want to be able to summarize all the information that the employee imputed in the Microsoft form. So I'm going to use dynamic content. This is this icon here that looks like a thunderbolt. That is the dynamic content. So I'm going to get all the information from since we've retrieved it using the get response details, we're going to get all the information from here. So two, we have to look for the email. So the employee, remember the employee filled in his or her email address. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to fill that in dynamically and say the subject would be expense reimbursement details. And then I say, dear full name. So I'll dynamically impute that to comma your request has been submitted. And then I impute let's say description, which is reason for expense here. And then on the next line I impute say amounts. So we're just randomly imputing something, so you see the outcome of this. We can impute department. So dynamically imputing that's cost center. We can also impute let me see, okay, date. Can also include date, and then date of expense. So all of that information, we can just say thank you, right? And that'll be all here. So after you have summarized everything in an email, what next do we go for? We need to be able to push all that information on SharePoint for tracking. So that SharePoint is more like a record for tracking all the information. So we need to input all of that there. And to do that, we need to add a step called create item. So create item on SharePoint. Create item on SharePoint. So our site address, this is my SharePoint, and then this is my site address, right? So we need to look for that communication site. You can see communication site. That is my address. So you have to click on that. List name. My list name is expense list. This is it here. Expense request rather. So my list name is expense request. So we need to impute that here. Expense request. And it will bring out all the information that we would need to update or create on the SharePoint list. So for the email, we need to dynamically impute all of this. This is email, date of expense. We have to dynamically impute all of this. This is dates, amounts. So for the amounts, sometimes you may not, see some information that you want. So I can just use an expression to get, that's a little trick I use though. So I use my expression and I go over to amount, and it gives me all of this expression, and then I click add. See, I've gotten it. Description, I dynamically get it to from reason for expense, and then I can also add other information that are not. So when you click on advanced parameters, you can click on show all and add other information that you want. So for the title part, I'm adding full name here dynamically. Cost center value, which is a department, I have to dynamically add this. Enter custom value, cost center, and the status value has to be pending because it has not been routed for approval yet. So at this stage, it is still pending, right? So these are all the information that we need for now. Now, the only thing we have not imputed or we have not added to the SharePoint list is the attachment, that's the uploaded file, right? And before we do that, we need to understand, what if the employee does not add an attachment to the form? What happens then? So at this point, we need to add a condition control. So adding a condition control, it gives us the true and false path, right? Or branch, anyone you want to call it. So in this case, I want to add an expression. So I would say if the length, if the length of, I can go to, sorry, if the length, I can go to dynamic content and look for upload file. So if this is get response details, see more, I click on see more. I go over to the upload receipt section. This is what we are looking for, right? So if the length of the upload receipt section, right, this is just add it first, is greater than, so this is my operator, is greater than, I'll choose a value here, 0. So that is what my condition is. If the length of the upload receipt section is greater than 0, it means there's a file, so it should fall through the true branch. But if the length of the uploaded file is 0 or less than that, it's definitely false. Now that we have established this condition, we need to be able to add our attachment to SharePoint list, right? But before that, whenever a file is uploaded on Microsoft Form, the raw output it gives is a string. Now, we need to be able to convert that into something Power Automate can understand, and that is what is called a real array, a JSON array. We need to be able to convert that to a JSON array. And to do that, we would add an action called compose. So compose here will help us to turn the strings into a real array. So I'm going to create an expression and then JSON dynamically imputes the uploaded receipts. This is it here. And then we add. Now we're using this to get the real array, right? So now that we have created the compose step, I like to do this trick, right? So I would save it at this point and test it so I can be able to get the raw outputs in this compose step. That is how I can be able to get that particular array I want. So I have saved it now, and then I can click on test. So because this is a new flow, I cannot test it automatically because I've not done it. We're just doing it for the first time, right? So I'll test it manually. I'll click on test. And then it says, to see it work now, perform the starting action. So I have to go over to my form, and then I input my name. I say uh Zara Orieno. I input my email, Zara Orieno at outlook.com. Date of expense, let's just put any date. 10th. Amount, let's take 600. Reason for expense, uh Bahamas vacation. Upload receipt, let's say I want to upload something. Okay, let me use this. Okay, let's say I'm in the marketing department, right? Submit. And then we've submitted that. We have to go back to our flow to see it run. So the first one has worked. Email has been sent, and then the flow ran successfully, right? If we go over to our email, we can see, let me confirm. Yes, this is my email. We can see the expense reimbursements. This is what we created today on our flow, right? So it has given me a summary of the information I imputed in the form, right? So when we click on compose, remember I'm trying to get the raw outputs for compose. So we're going to get the raw outputs, and then this is the array we need. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to copy that because I'll be needing that, right? And then I am going to go back to our flow, edit. I'm going to go back to our flow, and then I would add an action called pass JSON. Now, what will pass JSON do for me? Pass JSON can be able to tell Power Automate that these are the information that are included in this array. So if it's ID that is in the array, it will tell us, oh, it has ID, it has name, it has link, it has all of that. So it can help talk to Power Automate that these are the information that are included in this data structure, in this array. So that is what we're trying to do. So you click on pass JSON, and then we dynamically impute the content, which in our case it is upload receipts. So for the schema, we need to generate schema using what I have copied from the compose. Remember, we copied an array from the raw output of compose. So we need to paste it here and generate schema. So you see, it has been able to help us generate schema here, and then it has all the information. If with this, you can be able to create another or add another step, which we will do, that can grab the actual file that we would need in our flow, right? If we want to grab name, link, or ID, whatever information that we want to grab, pass JSON step has been able to communicate with Power Automate to tell Power Automate that this is what we have in this array. So going forward, the next step we'll be adding here is get file content. So for the get file content will grab the actual file that we need from pass JSON. So here we can add an expression and say we are getting the first file. So we go to our dynamic content, and grab the file, which here is the body, right? And then we add the ID. So we're grabbing the first ID in our uploaded file, right? So when you add that, we are done with this step. now that we've been able to grab it, we can now add that file to SharePoint. And to do that, we'll add attachment to SharePoint. So this is the add attachment. So before we continue with this, all right, let's come back to this compose step. We've been able to achieve what we want for the compose step, so we don't need it at all. We've been able to convert the string to JSON and gotten the raw output and imputed in the parse JSON for us to be able to get all the information stored in that file. So we do not need the compose step at this point. So we can delete it or we can leave it. But me, I would want to delete it. It doesn't change anything. So we are now at add attachment. So let's go to our site address, communication site, list name, expense requests. So our ID here would be from the create item, right? And then the file name would be, we need to create an expression. So I need you to get me the first uploaded file name. So this is it. And then we can add that. The file content can be gotten from the get file content, right? So dynamic content, this is the file content here from the get file content step. So all of that, once you save and test, so let's save it first and then we test. So we can do that automatically since we've done it before, and then see the first one succeeded. So we can do that again, test. Let's run that to see if our flow is actually working. It is very important for us to save our flow and test it at intervals so that if there's an error somewhere, we can be able to easily spot where we have probably made a mistake or where the error is coming from. Now, you can see that our flow ran successfully, which is actually very good. And if we want to prove that, we'll first of all go to our email to see the summary of the details imputed went through, and then we can go to our SharePoint list, refresh that, and then it gives us this. So remember, this is the information we imputed. This is the first one we did, this is the second one. And then if we click on it, we can see the attachment has been uploaded. You can see the attachment is here. But for the first one we did that did not have attachment, when you open it, you will see that there's no attachment here. That was before we created all the parse JSON, get file content, and add attachment step, right? But now that we've included all of that, we've been able to add all the information that we need into our SharePoint, right? So the next thing to do on our Power Automate flow is, let's go back to edit. The next thing to do on our Power Automate flow is to validate the request against the department's budget, which is the scenario we are using. So if, for instance, the employee's department is HR or sales, for instance, it has to be validated against sales department's maximum budget. So it has to fall within that same budget with the department, right? So let's go over to, so we are done with this part. We don't need to impute anything in the false part, because what we're trying to achieve here is if there's a file uploaded in the form, it goes through this pathway and then attaches the file to the SharePoint list. But if there is no attachment in the form, it goes down this path and it doesn't have to do anything. So we just have to go straight to the next step, which we're going to talk about now. But if we don't, if we miss this step and we don't segment it like this, there is a high probability that an error would happen if a file, if there is no file in that form. So we had to segment it like this. Now the next step is for us to add an action called list rows. List rows. So remember, our department's budget table is stored in an Excel file, right? So we're going to use list rows present in a table action to compare the department's budget with that of what the employee imputed in the form. So list rows, I would like to rename this to be let's say get department, right? And then for this condition that we have created here, I would like to rename this to be condition attachment, right? So let's name it at that. So back to our get department. Remember, we're trying to compare the department's budget with that of what the student has imputed in the form. And to do that, our Excel file is already saved in OneDrive. So we need to get the location of our Excel file. So it's saved in OneDrive for business, and the document library, OneDrive, the file. So when I open this folder, this is the name of my file, book 1 here, table. My table is data table. This is it here. And then is there any other information I would need? Yes. So we would need let me see. We would need a filter query. So we need the filter query to be able to compare the department budget with the amount that was imputed in the Microsoft forms. And to do that, we need to, we would say, so let's look at our Excel file. So looking at our Excel file, you can see that the departments here are marketing, sales, HR, and all of that. But look, this is the heading, right? The heading is cost center, no space. Max budget, no space. So we would say cost center is equal to, so EQ, dynamic content. So get a dynamic content from get response details, cost center. So we need to put a quote around it. So yeah, the cost center in the Excel file has to be equal to, or has to match, the cost center that was filled on the form. So if, for instance, what was filled on the form is HR as a cost center, it would have to, the filter query will help us to go back to the Excel file. So it's more like a budget lookup table. So it goes back to the budget lookup table, filters down the row in on the table, gives us what we have in the HR row, which is $7,500, right? So it gives us that information and compare that with what is in the form. So we need to add a condition such that if the amount that was imputed in the Microsoft form is lesser than that of the department's budget, it needs to go through the true branch. Where if it's greater than the maximum budget, it has to go through the false branch. So let's quickly do that. So we're adding condition. So we're adding the condition control, and then we have to choose a value. So let's write an expression here. Put this here. So let's say, so I added floats here so that it can be able to give me a number. And then let's go to get response details and add amount. So if the amount, add that, is less than, so we're going to change the operator to less than. If it's less than the maximum budget, we're going to create another expression. Float, because we've used float for the previous one, so we need to be able to compare two numbers. Float, let's go to dynamic content, max, yeah, just get response details, right? So we're able to use, let's use list of items. So we're getting the output from the list of rows, right? And then we are trying to get the first item in that row. That's the maximum budget. So I can add that in, and then we have our condition ready. So if the amount that is imputed in the form is less than what we have on the department's maximum budget table, then it can go through the through branch. It means that it can go further for approval. If not, we have to make sure that it goes through the false branch and then auto reject it. Let's quickly fill this false branch before I go to the true branch. So we are going to send an email, send email first to the employee, an auto rejection email. So we can dynamically impute that email. So the subject would be request has been auto rejected. Request has been auto rejected. The body, dear full name, full name, your request has been automatically rejected because it is above companies or departments budget. You may not want to include all that information, but this is an example. After that is done, we can name this to be send email auto rejection. And then after that is done, we can include an action, another action that to update item on SharePoint. So we're going to do this. So we're going to include our site address, communication site, list name, ID. Remember, our ID still has to be create item, right? So it dynamically imputes all the information on SharePoint. So let's impute all of this. So all of this has to be imputed from get response details, remember. So these are email, date of expense, date, amounts, it's an expression, so we can equally do that again. So we can add that. Description, reason for expense. Now, if we want to add more parameters here, we can do that. But before that, let's look at the status value. Since this is an auto rejection, we have to hard code it to be rejected, right? So for the receipt uploaded, yes or no, this is a yes or no section. Let's go to our SharePoint list. So this is a boolean. It's a yes or no section. right? It's a it's a yes or no section. This is it. So let's go back to our Power Automate. So to do that, so let me use an expression, right? If empty, if the so let's get that then dynamically. If the upload receipt section is empty, so see more item, upload receipt is empty, then it means that there is no file there. So it has to be false, else true. This expression just means if the uploaded receipt section is empty, it should give us false, which is no. Else, it should give us true. It means that there's something there. So whether or not it was auto rejected, I want a situation whereby all the information, including the upload receipt part, is uploaded on the SharePoint. So we have to click on add, and we are done with the false section. Now for the condition, let's rename this condition to be condition max budget, right? And then we are back to this true branch. So our next step is to add an approval action. So start approval. I'm sure if you get that. Start and wait for an approval. So this is what we're trying to get. The approval type, I would want custom responses, wait for one response. So that will give us other information that we need to impute. So I had to put custom here because I don't just want the approve and reject option. I want to be able to add other option like need more evidences, right? So our item 1 would be approve. We have to add another item called reject, and then add another item called need more evidence. So with that, so the title here would be approval request, and then you can add the full name dynamically from the get response details assigned to. Now I am going to hard code this using my email, but in a real use case, in a real business case, you can two things. The manager's email address can be added to the Microsoft form such that when the employee is filling the form, there should be a part for manager's email address where the employee can fill in the address of his or her manager. Now, if you don't want to do that, Power Automate can be able to get the email address of the employee's manager from the company's Azure Active Directory, right? So, but because this is an example, right, I am going to just hard code it using my email. So we can impute details. So I'm going to get these details instead of writing them again. I'll go back to this information and just copy it and paste it in our details section, right? Can just paste it here and just edit some things here. So I can say your approval is needed, description, and all of that information. And then I can add item link such that, so I can add, let me add the SharePoint list, SharePoint link so that the manager can be easily navigated from that field straight to the SharePoint list, right? And then the item link description can be, let's just call it something, SharePoint link to item. So after we are done with this step, the manager needs to either approve, reject, or need more evidence, right? So we have to add a condition such that if the manager approves, what happens? If the manager need more evidence, what happens? And if the manager rejects, what happens? So we're going to add a condition to that. Dynamically imputes from the start and wait for an approval. We need to add the outcome. So what is the outcome of the approval? So if the outcome, whatever it is, if it's equal to approve, then it goes through the true branch, right? Else it goes through the false branch. Now let's take that up and then let's rename our condition to be, let's say, condition manager. Whatever the outcome of the start and wait for approval by the manager is, it has to be, if it's equal to approve, then it goes through the true branch. If it is not, it goes through the false branch. Now we also need to come up here and rename this. So this start and wait for an approval is for the manager, right? So the approval first of all goes to the manager, and then if the manager approves, it goes through the true branch. If it doesn't, it goes through the false branch. So what happens if it goes through the true branch? The manager has to send it to the finance department. So we need to also create a start and wait approval step. So this is it here. We need to add that. And then the approval type would be also custom responses, wait for one response, right? We can change this to, this is for the finance department. Approval type, yeah, we've done that. Response, the first response should be approve, add new item, reject, add new item, need more evidence, right? So the manager and the finance team need to be able to either approve, reject, or need more evidence, as the case may be. Let's also finish up with this. So the title should be approval request. So we can impute the dynamic content for the full name through the get response details part. Then assigned to, I'm going to also hard code my email here, but still remember that in a real business scenario, the email address of the finance department can also be gotten from the organization's Azure Active Directory, right? So we need to impute the details and add that here. We can even add hello finance team, your approval is needed, just to differentiate it, right? We can come to the manager part to add hello. Remember, this is an example. Hello manager, your approval is needed. So let's go back to our finance email. So we can add up the link. I've copied it here. So we can add the link. The description can be SharePoint link to item, right? I don't think we have any other parameters that we would be needing here. So that will be all for this part. So now that we are done with the approval step for the finance department, remember that it is only when the outcome is equal to approval that it goes to the true branch, and then it further goes to the finance team. But any other thing aside approval goes to the false branch. Remember, we still have two other factors we need to consider, which is need more evidence and rejection. So what if the manager needs more evidence? What if the manager rejects that request? Remember, when it comes to if, it's a conditional statement, so we have to add a condition. So adding a condition control here, condition, before that, we need to rename this auto reject. Remember, this is from the first false branch we have. We didn't remember to update that because we'll be having more of update item step coming up. So we need to, it's important you rename every step so they don't give you an error. So auto reject. So we are back to our condition. You can see that has given us a condition 3, and this condition 3 has to do with if the manager needs more evidence or if the manager rejects. So here we need to impute the outcome. If the outcome from the start approval by manager is equal to need more evidence, please make sure that what you imputed here is the same thing. The capitalization, the spacing, the letters, everything has to rhyme with what you're imputing in this condition, right? So it's the same thing I'm doing here. So if the outcome is equal to need more evidence, so I'm going to change this to condition need more evidence. So if it's equal to need more evidence, it goes through the true branch. Else, it is rejection. That is the tactics you're using here. So if that's the case, if it is true that the manager needs more evidence, what happens? We need to send an email to the employee telling or informing the employee that your manager needs more evidence. So we're going to add an action in the true branch. Send email. So remember, we're using the Office 365 Outlook connector. So we're sending email to the employee, and then we need to impute information dynamically. So we're going back to the employee using the get response detail step. So get response details, we need the email, subject, manager needs more evidence. So we can just reimbursement requests. Then the body can be dear. So we get the full name. We get the full name, comma, kindly provide more evidence for the manager's approval. Warm regards. That'll be all here. That'll be all here. And then after that, we can add another step called update item on SharePoint. That way we can have a record where we store all that information, right? Update item on SharePoint. So site address, communication site, list name, expense requests, ID, create item, email. So we now have to go back to the get response details to get all that information. We can look at advanced parameters to see if there are other information that we want to add. I think I want to add the title, the cost center value. Yeah, that'll be all I want to add. So I can include that. The title should be the full. Remember, we're updating the SharePoint list, and the title there is the full name, cost center value. You have to dynamically get that information. Cost center value. We need to know what department the employee imputed. Status value, impute the need more evidence section here, and then the receipt is a yes or no field, so we can add that, and then we are done with this part. So we can change this to be uh need more evidence, need more evidence, and then we can change this as well to be need more evidence. If the outcome of the stats and approval section for the manager is equal to need more evidence, it has to go through the true branch, else it means that that request was rejected. So here we have to send an email to the employee, send email to the employee to say your request has been rejected. So for the manager, we've been able to tackle the approval, the need more evidence, and then the rejection. So for the rejection, let's complete that. Dynamic content. So this is being sent to email subject. So your reimbursement request has been rejected. And then we can say, dear full name, comma, your request has been rejected by the manager. Rename this to be manager reject. And then we can add another step, which is update item. So we can come here to copy this one, paste it here, and then we can rename this to be manager reject, right? And then all of this information is here already. We don't need to remove them, right? Except for the status value, which has to be rejected. And then the upload receipts, still the same thing. Cost center, the same thing. So all of this information are still the same, right? So we've done this. So let's go over to our true section. So remember, our condition here is after the manager approves, it goes straight to the true branch, and then the finance department has the option to either approve, reject, or need more evidence. So we have to create a condition such that if the finance department approves it, what happens? If the finance department rejects it, what happens? And if the finance department need more evidence, what happens? So we're going to do a replica of what we did for that of the manager, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add a condition control, right? And then dynamically get the outcome for the finance team. So whatever be the outcome of the finance team, if it's equal to approve, then it falls through the true branch, right? Remember to rename your every step. It's very important in Power Automate. So condition finance, right? So if it's approved, it goes through the true step. If it's uh not approved, it goes through the false step, right? So what happens if the finance department approves it? So we want to make sure that if the finance department approves it, it sends an email to the employee. Send an email v2 using Office 365 Outlook connector. We can actually copy this, right? Copy, and then we can paste it here instead of creating all of that again, right? So I can just delete this, and so deleting this, we'll change this to finance approve. Your reimbursement request has been approved, right? So dear dynamical full name, kindly, so you can change that to your request has been approved. Warm regards. So that way you can also add parameters here to copy your manager, right? And CC your manager. Let me hard code my email here. So this is my email. You can CC your manager to also be informed whenever you get any status from the finance department. So if the finance department approves, rejects, need more evidence, all the time, the manager needs to be informed when an email is sent to the employee. So we're going to see, we CC the manager here, and then this section is completed. So we can then add uh, another action, which is update item, right? So I can take from here, copy it, and then add here, paste an action. So this is field, ID correct, email, all of this are already filled. So what we need to do here is to update the status value to be approved, right? To be approved. And every other information here is correct. Now, we would need uh, some advanced parameters here like the manager's comments and the finance comments. I did not impute that in the previous one. I would go back to do that. So for the, remember to rename this to update item finance approve, right? So back to the manager's comment, we will need to add an expression, right? We need to add an expression. So we add first, and then we look for the stats and wait for an approval by the manager. We look for all the responses, click on responses, and then what we need is the manager's comment, right? So I impute this comment, then I add that the finance uh department comment to add an expression first. I need the first comment from their response, from the outcome of their response. So I impute this dynamic content from the finance team, see more, response, this is it, and then comments, and voila, this is all we need. So this is for the approve, right? I need to do that here for the, this is the manager part, remember, this is the manager part. I need to be able to do that here as well. I didn't remember to impute that. So if we're adding more parameters, manager, for the manager's comment, I need to add an expression first, dynamic content, manager, see more response, see more. All right, I get the responses, all responses, and then comments. Done. So the same thing here for the reject. Add advanced parameters, manager's comment, add that expression. So add that. That is done. And then we are back to approve, right? So if the finance department approves it, it goes straight to sending an email to the employee for that the request has been approved, and then updating the SharePoint list. Then if it is not approved, it goes to the false section. So we have two factors left for the false section, and we need to create a condition for it such that if the outcome of the start and wait for an approval for the finance department is equal to need more evidence, it goes to the true branch. If it's not, it automatically goes to the false branch. So let's create our condition control. Right, so we can name this condition to be condition finance need more evidence. So if the outcome of the start and wait for approval by the finance is equal to need more evidence, then it goes to the true branch, and then we can be able to send an email to the the employee. So let's copy from here and paste it here, paste, and then copy this and paste it here as well, paste. So now let's edit it. So we're editing this to need more evidence by finance, need more evidence by finance. We need to impute finance needs more evidence. Dear full name, kindly provide more evidence to the for finance approval, for finance department approval, warm regards. And then we can add advanced, we can add more parameters, copy the manager. So here, since I'm using myself as both the manager and the finance, I'm going to hard code this confidence. Alright, so this is it here, and then that'll be all for the send an email v2 finance need more evidence. And then we go over to the update item and edit it too. So this part is good. ID, email, all of that is okay. and then we come here to status, need more evidence, correct? Then managers comments, correct? But here we need to add something else. We need to add a finance comment, right? We need to add the finance comments, and then doing that, we add an expression, and the expression would be, I need the first comment from all their responses. So see more, and then I scroll down to where I have all responses, all of the responses, and then I include comments. So that way I add it and I am good. Now we are done with the need more evidence section. So if the outcome here is not equal to need more evidence, it automatically goes to the false branch. And to create the false branch, we need to add a step called the send an email step. So I'm going to copy this as well, right? Copy this and paste it here. And then copy this as well. Copy action. We can paste it here. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. So from the send an email, we can edit that to finance, reject, and then your reimbursement request has been rejected. Dear full name, your request has been rejected by the finance team. So that'll be all here. We can add advanced parameters to make sure that we are copying the manager, right? And then I'm hard coding my email here. Done. And then when we are done with the email section, we can go to the update item on SharePoint section. This is done. So the only information that we need to add here is the finance comment. So finance comment, we add that in, and then we add the expression to be add. And that is it, guys. So we can save our work and test. So our flow is ready to go. So we can proceed. You can see how voluminous our Power Automate flow looks, right? But as long as you understand what you are doing and what each parameter or step is going to do, you are on the right track. So let's test it automatically since we've done it before. Test, test. So you can see that it has passed through all these steps. We are here. You saw that I got a notification that needs an approval, right? That is why it's still hanging here. So we need to go to our email. I inputted one of my details as the email to retrieve all this information from the form. And then I need to open my other email that I fixed as the manager and the finance approval email. So this is the email. So it's awaiting approval, and I am the manager in this case, and it's giving me all the information. If I want to get more information regarding the uploaded file and all, I can click on this link here, right? Remember, this is the description. We use SharePoint link to items, so it will navigate us or route us down back to the SharePoint list. So let's do that. I've clicked on that, and then it has brought me back to this SharePoint list. So here I can be able to check the last person that sent an email, right? That sent a request. So it will give me all this information, and once I click on it, I can see the attachment here and any other information that I need here as the manager. So let's go back to the email. So I can choose to either approve. You can see all that information here that I've inputted in the start and wait for an approval step. So it's giving me an approve option, reject option, or need more evidence option, right? So let's say I'm going to approve it. We're going to test run two of these. We're going to test run the approval, and then we're going to test run for if there is no file upload in that form. So let's do that. Approve. Go ahead. That is the manager's comment. Submit. And now that I have approved, it's remember the flow, it's going straight to the finance department. So the finance department will also receive it here. To show that it's coming from the finance department, I had to differentiate it by saying hello finance team. Remember the previous one, look at it. The previous one is from the manager, hello manager. This one is from the finance team, hello finance team, right? So I also want to or let's just go ahead to say need more evidence. So need more evidence. Your receipt is not clear. Submit. Let's see where that takes us. So let's go to our flow and see where that takes us. So you can see that our flow is still running and it has passed the uh, condition check for approval, and currently we are on the finance part. So it has manager has approved it, it has gone through the true branch, and then to the finance department needs more evidence, so it fell into the false branch and into this part for needing more evidence. And I would be getting an email, right, to this is my email. I'll be getting an email to let me know that this to let me know that the finance department wants more evidence. And then as the manager would also be copied, right, in that email, informing the employee that more evidence is needed for that uh, approval to take place. So we're done with this. Let's try one more thing. So how about let's edit. So let's try one more thing. What if the employee fills the form and then does not add an attachment? So let's test that out. So click on test manually. Remember the one we imputed before, it has an attachment, but we need to fill another form that does not have anything to do with an attachment. No attachment will be on this form, right? So we need to manually test that, and then it's waiting for us to say to see it work, submit a new response to the selected form. So this is the form. We need to submit another response. Full name, I'm going to use something different. Let's say Ezeocha Confi. Email, I'm going to use date of expense, or just pick up any date, amount. I want us to do something. What if the situation is not just that there is no file there? What if it is above the department's budget? Can we do that? So the highest budget in our file here is 15,000. Let's do 20,000. So if the amount is say 20,000, what happens? Reason for budget, traveling. So just going to input something, and then remember no receipts, and then we just say HR department, and then we submit. The essence of this test right now is two things. We want to make sure that we want to test the flow such that if the employee does not add any attachment, one, what happens? Secondly, if the amount is above the department's budget, what happens? So we need to submit. So let's go to our Power Automate to see what that gives us. Your flow ran successfully. So let's see. So it went through this path, gave us a response, sent an email to the employee, created item on SharePoint, then went through this path. Remember, there's nothing here. So it came down here to give us to compare the budgets with that of the amount filled in the form, and then checked the condition to see if it's above budget and went straight to auto rejection. So there is no need sending it to the manager or the finance team because that amount, $20,000, is more than the department's budget. So let's see what that gives us. So the first email I'm getting is this, which is 20,000. The request has been submitted, blah blah blah. Yeah. And then we have another email here to say, dear Ezeocha-Orieno, your request has been automatically rejected because it's above department's budget. Let's see, uploaded. If all the information have been uploaded here, we can scroll down to see the first one we imputed, right? You can see it needs more evidence. Marketing need more evidence. The manager said go ahead. This is the comment. Then finance, your receipt is not clear. The boolean yes or no field, it marked it as, there was an upload in that field. And if we are to look at this carefully, if we are to look at this to see more information, we can see all the details here: the manager comments, the finance comments, the receipt upload, yes, and then you can see that there's a receipt upload here. That's for the first one we did, which needed more evidence from the finance department, right? And then when we go over to this one that we just did, you can see all the fields have been imputed, right? You can see that this one is the one that has amounts over the maximum, the department's budget, right? So if you click on this, you can see that all the details are here. So the record has been updated, and that is done. Okay, so that will be all for now, and I hope you enjoyed watching my video. I hope you also found this educative and insightful. You can replicate this in your business, in your workplace. And if you found this video helpful, please do well to share, like, subscribe, comment. I would love to hear your feedback, and I would see you in my next video. Also hit your notification buttons for updates on the next video. Thank you guys. Bye.